This week on Motor Week, Chris Goffey is in Switzerland for a drive of the Volkswagen Lupo. Ginny Buckley gets to grips with the Isuzu Trooper, and Ian Royle takes a look at the new Peugeot 206.
Beautiful shores of Lake Geneva and Volkswagen's new small car, the Lupo. Why do they need a small car? After all, they've got the Polo. Well, the answer is over the years, Polo has grown into one of the biggest super minis. It's almost the same length and weight as the original Mark I Golf. So Volkswagen say there's room for a new small car contender. Now, while Lupo is small in interior space in the front and passenger side at least, it's very generous. Volkswagen claim that this area is the same size as their Volkswagen Polo, and in the press release they say that's the same size as a medium saloon car. Not quite sure about that statement, and there isn't an awful lot of elbow room on my side, that's for sure. But very generous headroom and lots of leg and hip room, certainly in this car. Comfortable supportive seats for a small car in this price range, and with the Swiss insistence that you stick to their very tight speed limits, and we're told radar traps everywhere, not a huge opportunity to exploit the performance and handling, but certainly cruising round Lake Geneva seems perfectly adequate. This is the 1.4 litre 75 brake horsepower engine. Nice 5-speed gearbox, typically Volkswagen in the way it performs as well. Although it does gulp somewhat on the auto route when you engage the optional air conditioning. If you like the rather extreme colour of this particular car, then you won't mind all these areas of painted metal inside. Personally, I think I'd prefer it if they were properly trimmed. But certainly this is no cut price special. Volkswagen are underlining the amount of equipment that will be available on the car when it's launched in the UK after the motor show this year. The chassis engineers have paid a lot of attention to ride comfort in this car, and it doesn't pitch and jolt as so many ultra small cars tend to do. In fact, the ride in the back is quite smooth, even if there isn't very much in the way of legroom. Lupo shares its cheeky styling with Seat's Arosa, already on sale in the UK. Different front end, and another major difference, Volkswagen say this car has a fully galvanised body shell guaranteed against corrosion for 12 years. Why this car should have that guarantee and the Arosa doesn't is anybody's guess. This is the 1 litre 54 brake horsepower version of the car, and it'll form the entry-level model in the UK. Understandably less lively than the 1.4 litre big brother, but nonetheless very lively around town. And although it's going to be the base version, still well equipped. Decent electric windows, good seats, twin airbags, passenger and driver, and head restraints for all 5 occupants. And despite it being the 1 litre version, it's very smooth and refined at motorway speed. Now, I know Jeremy Clarkson always rubbishes diesels, but in this particular installation, you have to say it makes an awful lot of sense. 70 miles an hour on the auto route, and the diesel version of Lupo is definitely not as smooth and quiet as either the 1 litre or the 1.4. Nevertheless, it's got a maximum speed of 97 miles an hour, so it's not short on performance, and it's capable of delivering in this lightweight body 78 miles to the gallon. So that puts the petrol cars firmly in their place. As you'd expect for a small, light car with a wheel virtually at each corner and generous tyre size, handling is agile and nippy, power steering is light and responsive, and very easy to place the car on the road. And it's also an exceptionally easy car to drive. A lot of people are going to learn in a Lupo. So what are Lupo's competitors? Well, obviously the Ford Ka springs immediately to mind. Renault didn't bring the Twingo into the UK market, which I think was a mistake. And then you've got a plethora of Japanese and Korean mini cars that I'm never convinced will really take off in the UK. So you could say Lupo has a pretty good niche in the market. Why should you buy this instead of the Arosa and save yourself quite a lot of money? Well, that's down to equipment and trim levels. Pays you money, takes your choice. For a small car, it's got big doors, and that means easy access to the interior, especially with this fold-down system. Plenty of space in the front, seats are nicely adjustable, and the interior trim on this one is very attractive indeed, in grey and blue. Not sure about the green one we drove earlier, that was just boring. How can Lupo fail? It's well built, well equipped, and the price certainly on paper seems to be right. It's fitted with well-proven Volkswagen components, the colours are bright, the interiors are nice. So it's going to sell. And the fleet people say even if there's a recession, then the fleet market could well downsize into vehicles like this. Volkswagen appear to have it all ways.
The term world platform is nothing new. Ford, GM and others have been pursuing this ideal for some years. The problem has always been that people in, say, Europe will have totally different requirements to those, say, in the United States. With the new Accord, Honda designers around the globe had to contend with 3 conflicting requirements from their main markets. For the Japanese-Asian market, they needed a long, narrow car, better able to cope with the busy streets of Tokyo. For the US, well, they wanted longer and wider, of course. For Europe, they needed a car slightly shorter and wider than needed for the other markets. Well, the answer was to create a platform design on computer with subframes common to all Accords, but with the flexibility to be adjusted to suit the local markets. These subframes carry all the locating points for the suspension, as well as form a significant part of the car's structure and crash protection elements. The chassis dimensions between these subframes can vary without adding substantially to the development costs. This flexibility was gained by altering the mounting points for the subframes. Globally, this reduces the cost locally to the design centres in Japan, USA and Europe, while still providing the vehicles needed in each market. For example, in Japan only, there's a 4-wheel drive Accord. Previously, this model needed its own individual rear suspension, an expensive undertaking. With the new system, this wasn't necessary. To look at the Accords from all these markets side by side, you wouldn't think that they were the same model at all. Only the Honda family styling cues really hint at their common heritage.
Coming up after the break, Ginny Buckley tests the Isuzu Trooper and Ian Royle looks at the Peugeot 206.
It's big, it's bold, and it's all Asian. There's something not quite right in that sentence, isn't there? Well, it may sound wrong, but it's a fact that it isn't the Yanks, but the Asian manufacturers that have cornered the market in the big, and I mean big, off-roaders. If Kings Road cruisers are not for you, then say hello to the Isuzu Trooper. This is serious size, and even its name makes me nervous. Now, the off-road market has been steadily growing for the past 10 years, and it's now incredibly varied. The purists who like their 4x4s war-torn, battered and very muddy said the craze would never last, but it has. And now we're spoilt for choice when it comes to vehicles that let us see over hedges, or if the mood takes us, drive straight through them. And the Trooper looks as though it would have no problems driving through a whole forest if it had to. The sheer size of this thing is incredible. It's absolutely immense. But the changes to the styling mean that it's also quite a handsome brute. There are two versions of the new Trooper, a long and a short wheelbase. Each comes in a 3-litre diesel or a 3.5-litre petrol version, and there are also 3 trim levels. Prices range from £19,000 to £26,500. This is the long wheelbase 3-litre diesel duty, and it'll set you back £23,500. Now, of the 3 trim levels that are on offer, the duty is the middle of the range, and I actually think that it's the best value. Along with the basics, you get some little extras thrown in: an electrics package, alloy wheels, a passenger airbag, remote central locking, and if your family demands it, you can even have a 3rd row of seating fitted back here. Looking around the interior, I have to say that I found the Trooper's major flaw. It looks pretty miserable and old-fashioned. There's far too much horrible, cheap-looking plastic, and the interior upholstery is just awful. But one thing I can't moan about is space. There's plenty of space for both the driver and the passengers, and the seats are very comfortable. But let's get back to the 3-litre diesel that powers the Trooper along, because this ain't any old diesel. It's a new development in diesel engines, known as the common rail diesel, and it's the first time it's been on sale in the UK. So what benefits will you feel? Well, it offers a more controlled and efficient combustion compared to the direct injection, which means you get plenty of torque, even in quite low revs, making the driving experience far more fun than in the diesels of old. Another new feature on the Trooper is shift on the fly, and here comes the science bit. It's all to do with the 4-wheel drive system. When you're driving along normally, the power will go to the rear wheels. However, if the conditions change and you need the 4-wheel drive capabilities, all you need to do is flick a switch and hey presto, you're in an off-road monster capable of tackling bogs and boulders with delight. But having that kind of ability off-road, of course, can mean problems when we get the vehicles onto the tarmac that they're normally driven on. They can hack it on the tough stuff all right, but they wallow and they wobble their way around the slightest sniff of a bend on a normal road. Not the Trooper. It now has a wider track, different springs and beefier anti-roll bars. It feels solid and steady with very strong direct steering. The new diesel power plant is quiet even at high speeds. This 3-litre has a top speed of 100 miles per hour. And fuel economy is also pretty good. Government figures show around 31.4 around town. For such a huge brute, the Trooper really is amazingly easy to drive. You very quickly feel confident and at home behind the wheel. I love its road presence. It really isn't as brash or as flash as some of the other off-roaders in the market. And I also love the fact that its size means you get a great view of everything that's going on around you. The only problem I found with that was the first time I tried to squeeze this thing into the tiniest of spaces at the supermarket. Still, you get used to that pretty quickly, and there's plenty of space for the shopping, and the kids, and the dog, and yes, even the kitchen sink.
The Peugeot 205 was one of the great motoring icons of the 1980s and early 90s. We British took to the Super Mini like a Frenchman to his bottle of wine. What we most liked about the 205 was, of course, the hot hatchback, the 205 GTI, first in 1.6 and later the cooking 1.9 version. It was a car to have fun in and could beat the pants off rivals like the XR2.
The 205 has not been available in Britain for some 2 years now because Peugeot have been spending very heavily on the 205's successor. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the imaginatively titled Peugeot 206. Now, Peugeot have spent some 4 years and £630 million developing the 206. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of dosh. This car has to be absolutely spot on. What's more, it's being built at the Ryton plant near Coventry in Britain, so it's French flair and British hands that are building this car every day. The 206 sits on an entirely new platform with a range of body styles, 3- and 5-door hatchbacks, plus a coupe cabriolet due in a couple of years' time. Now, Peugeot have had to be very careful how they position the 206 into their ever-expanding range. The 106 is now a super mini, the 306 a small car, and this new 206 takes on the mantle super mini. And in so doing, Peugeot have taken the guillotine to parts of the 106 and 306 ranges, with the upper 106s being chopped and the lower model 306s also destined for the wicker basket. This is a car which will take on the new Clio, the Polo, the aging Fiesta, Corsa and Punto in an already crowded market. And to do that, it has to look good, feel good and be great to drive. Now, before you drive the 206, first you have to look at it and like it. Breathe in deeply, get that Gallic whiff. Think of all the packs of Gitanes cigarettes that were smoked by the designers when they were working on it. It has a very French look to it. I always think that French cars have a certain look and style all of their own, and this is no different. It has the new Peugeot house style too, swept-back headlights and bonnet at the front, and this high roofline here in the centre, which gives excellent headroom. Now, inside the 206, the interior is functional without being outlandish. Everything is nicely laid out and easily at hand. This centre pod here, as well as housing this enormous hazard warning light, which unfortunately you have to reach for a little bit, also houses a display which will give you satellite navigation, should you choose it, as an option on the options list for the 206, and that's a first for a car of this particular size. The plastics disappoint though. Interior trim generally is very good. There are lots of different styles to choose from, and this Alcantara one in this particular model is very smart. The 206 will be available initially in 4 trim levels: L, LX, GLX and a so-called Sporty XS in 3 or 5 doors with 4 different engines to choose from. The entry 1.1 is 60 brake horsepower, the 1.4 70 horsepower, the 1.6 90 horsepower and a 1.9 turbo diesel which pumps out a heart-stopping 70 brake horsepower. Prices range from £8,495 for the 3-door 1.1L up to £11,295 for the 5-door 206 GLX 1.6 litre with air conditioning, and these prices are pretty much what you would expect to pay. There's no GTI yet, but we should see a 2-litre 136 brake horsepower unit in 1999, plus maybe a really cooking GTI 6 is rumoured to be on the cards, but it's wait and see on that, I'm afraid. So if you like the look of the 206, you particularly want to know how it drives, and that basically is very good. This is the 1.6 that we've been driving for the past couple of days, and this has a slightly firmer, sportier suspension than, say, the base 1.1 model, which gives it a nice feel. The gearbox is crisp and light and easy to use, the power steering nicely weighted, and the handling, on the whole, generally good. Push it hard into a corner and you'll come out safely the other side. The engines, well, there's a wide range of engines, 1.1, 1.4, 1.6. You need to rev them hard and they're very responsive, nice buzzy engines too. The 1.1, I would suspect though, with only 60 brake horsepower, will run out of steam very easily. Specification is high, with standard on all models, power steering, height adjustable steering column, driver's airbag, radio cassette, immobiliser and tinted glass. Plus, apart from the base L model, you can choose to have either a glass sunroof or air conditioning. And in what must be a first for this class of car, on the top GLX model, a fully integrated satellite navigation system for just £800. Has it ever been cheaper? Peugeot have done some research into the small car market and predict that it's going to grow significantly in the UK in the next few years. Now, European countries and European cities really love their small cars, whereas perhaps in the UK, in the big cities, we find ourselves driving around in larger vehicles and 4x4s. Peugeot think that that could change, and they're very handily placed to pick up that change with their 106 and 306, and now with this new 206. So, have Peugeot come up with a winner in the new 206? Well, almost certainly yes. The styling's good, there's plenty of room inside for the passengers. Some would say it's a radical car. On the downside at the moment are the engines, which lack a bit of response and, quite frankly, lack a bit of oomph. You might be better going with, say, a Ford Fiesta. However, there is a GTI on the way, if that's what it's going to be called, and when that arrives, maybe then we'll see the 206 as a worthy successor to the 205, the much missed 205, and that is a compliment in itself.
The British Motor Show was a huge success for the small specialist manufacturer who took over £20 million worth of orders. TVR, who went to Birmingham's NEC Extravaganza hoping to pick up around 50 orders, actually won 300 orders valued at nearly £11 million. The new Tuscan Speed 6 took the majority, although Griffiths, Chimeras and Cerberus also sold well. Jensen followed the favourable press reception of their SV8 with 60 orders for the aluminium-bodied open two-seater. Specialists from Morgan to Dare all reported similar successes, which will come as a valuable confidence boost to the small industry hearing talk of an impending recession. British Steel, the SMMT and IBCAM, which is the Institute of British Carriage and Automobile Manufacturers, presented awards at the show. The awards are judged on ergonomics, safety, use of materials, build quality and concern for the environment. Among the winners were Daewoo, with their attractive Matisse winning the category for 2- to 5-door saloon cars up to £10,000. Ford Focus won the £12,000 to £14,000 category, while Saab's 9.5 Estate won the category for Best Estate above 20 grand. Manufacturers value this prize because they're awarded by their contemporaries. They're also judged on criterion of value to potential customers. Next week on Motor Week, Howard Stableford puts the Voyager head-to-head with the Renault Espace. Chris Goffey is in Scotland at the launch of the new Discovery. And Ginny Buckley proves there's now more to the Volkswagen Golf. Next week on Motor Week.